The starship Veora drifted quietly through the endless ocean of stars. Its hull gleamed silver under the light of distant suns, and inside it lived creatures from 100 different worlds. They spoke in many tongues, carried different cultures, and had different ways of living. Yet somehow they shared the same mission: exploration, survival, and unity among the stars. Among them was Commander Lyra, a proud warrior from the reptilian species known as the Drakiri. Her scales were dark green, her posture straight, and her eyes sharp like polished glass. She had fought wars before she ever stepped on this ship. She had carried weapons heavier than most beings could lift. She had never once allowed weakness to touch her name. But this morning was different. The first light of the ship's artificial cycle blinked on, signaling the start of a new day. Crew members moved in the corridors, engines hummed, doors opened and closed. But in her cabin, Lyra did not rise. Her legs trembled the moment she tried to swing them over the edge of the bunk. A stabbing heat spread between them, a burning so sharp she bit her lip to stop from screaming. She fell back against the bed, claws digging into the sheets. Her pride told her to stand. Her body said otherwise. The flesh between her legs felt swollen, inflamed, and tender to the touch. Even moving an inch sent pain racing through her body. She clenched her fists. She was Commander Lyra of the Drakiri. She had marched across deserts without water. She had bled on battlefields without rest. And yet here she was, unable to walk, broken not by an enemy's blade but by her own body. To her people, such weakness was worse than death. The ship did not wait for her. Her absence would soon be noticed. She pressed her claws against her temples, forcing herself to breathe slowly, quietly, as though silence could hide her shame. But silence did not last forever. A soft knock came at her door. "Commander?" It was Daniel. The human, she froze. Daniel was not like the others. He was small compared to her kind, his body soft, his skin fragile, and yet there was something unshakable in him, something that unsettled her. He smiled too easily. He cared too much. His kind treated emotions like treasures instead of burdens. Lyra had never understood him, yet she had never ignored him either. "Commander Lyra." His voice came again, gentle but firm. "You missed 2 shifts. May I come in?" Her pride screamed no. Her body whispered yes. For a long moment she said nothing. Then as she tried to rise once more, her legs gave out completely. A sharp cry escaped her throat before she could silence it. The door slid open. Daniel stepped inside, eyes wide, concern written all over his face. "Lyra," he said softly, rushing to her side. "You're hurt." Her teeth clenched. She turned her face away. "Go," but he didn't go. He knelt beside her bunk, his warm human hands hovering near her without touching. "Tell me what happened." She wanted to stay silent, to let him leave and carry her shame with him, but the fire inside her body was too much. The truth spilled out like broken glass, the flesh between my legs, she whispered, voice sharp with humiliation. "It burns, it swells. I cannot stand. I cannot walk." There, the words were spoken. Her shame laid bare. She expected laughter, or worse, pity, but Daniel did neither. His eyes softened, and instead of stepping back, he leaned closer. "Thank you for telling me," he said quietly. "You don't have to hide this from me." Her heart twisted. Why did his voice not carry judgment? Why did it not sting like salt in an open wound? "Among my kind," she said bitterly, "weakness is dishonor. You should not see me like this." "Among mine," Daniel replied, "weakness is just another part of being alive. And when we're hurt, we help each other. No shame in that." His words landed heavier than any blade. Lyra turned her head slowly, her eyes meeting his. For the first time in years, she saw no enemy, no rival, no subordinate, only a companion who refused to leave her side. She wanted to snarl. She wanted to push him away. But when she looked at him, all she saw was something she had never known in her warrior life: safety. Her lips parted, but no words came. Daniel stood slowly, his eyes never leaving her. "I'll bring water, towels, my med kit, please." "Let me help you." And before she could stop him, he was gone. His footsteps quick but quiet, his presence lingering in the air like warmth after fire. Lyra closed her eyes. Her body still ached, her pride still bled, but for the first time that day, she allowed herself a single breath of relief. The ship outside hummed as it always did. Stars stretched beyond the windows as they always had. But inside that cabin, something new had begun. something she could not yet name. And though her pride screamed against it, she knew one truth deep within her chest. She needed him. Daniel returned quickly, carrying a small med kit in one hand and a container of warm water in the other. His steps were careful, his face calm, but his heart raced. He had seen soldiers fall in battle. He had seen wounds, burns, and broken bones. But to see Commander Lyra, so proud, so unshakable, lying weak on her bunk was different. It was like watching a mountain crack. Lyra turned her face away as he entered. She hated how helpless she looked. Her claws gripped the blanket tightly, her chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. Pride burned hotter than the fire between her legs. "Put it down," she said sharply, pointing at the supplies. "I will manage myself." Daniel set the water and medkit on the table beside her. "Can you stand?" he asked gently. Her jaw clenched. She tried again, pushing herself up. Her legs shook and pain stabbed so deep she cried out. The sound escaped before she could silence it. She collapsed back onto the bunk, trembling. Daniel knelt beside her again. He did not laugh. He did not look away. His eyes were steady, soft but unyielding. "Lyra," he said quietly, "you cannot manage this alone." "Do not speak to me like I am weak," she hissed. Her eyes burned with tears she refused to shed. "I am Drakiri. My people do not bow to pain." "And yet you are in pain," Daniel replied. His voice was firm now, no longer soft. "You don't have to bow to it, but you also don't have to hide it." His words hit her harder than she expected. She turned her head, looking at the wall, unable to face him. "Why are you here, human? Why do you care if I suffer?" "Because you're my crewmate," he said simply. "And because I don't leave people behind." Lyra's chest tightened. In her culture, no one cared for the weak. The weak were left behind, forgotten, erased. Yet here was Daniel, kneeling beside her, refusing to leave. The silence stretched long between them. Finally, she whispered, "I cannot walk. The flesh burns. Every step feels like knives. I do not know what to do." Her voice broke at the last word. She hated it, hated herself for letting it happen. Daniel's hand hovered near hers, not touching, just waiting. "Then let me help you, please. I've treated things like this before, inflammation, infection. I know how to ease the pain." She blinked at him, surprised. "You know this?" He gave a small smile. "Humans break easily. We've learned to fix each other." For the first time, her lips trembled into something almost like a smile, though it faded quickly. "If my people knew, if they saw me like this—" "They're not here," Daniel interrupted softly. "It's just us. No judgment. No shame." Her heart thudded against her ribs. She wanted to push him away. But the fire in her body screamed louder. Her pride and her pain battled like enemies within her chest. At last she gave the smallest nod. Daniel moved carefully, pulling the chair closer. He opened the med kit, laying out the supplies: clean cloth, a small vial of ointment, bandages, and gloves. His movements were slow, deliberate, giving her time to stop him if she chose. "Tell me if anything hurts too much," he said. Lyra let out a bitter laugh. "Everything already hurts too much." Still, she allowed him. He dampened a cloth in warm water, wringing it out before pressing it gently against her skin. She hissed, claws digging into the sheets, but he spoke calmly. "Breathe with me. In, out, in, out." She forced herself to follow his rhythm. The warmth eased some of the burning, the cloth soaking away sweat and irritation. When he applied the ointment, the sting was sharp, but slowly the fire dulled. Her body trembled, her breath shaky, but she endured. His presence steadied her more than she wished to admit. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, he sat back, wiping his forehead. "That should ease the swelling. But you'll need rest, and more treatment tomorrow." She lay still, her chest rising and falling. The pain had not vanished, but it had softened. For the first time since the fire began, she felt something close to relief. "You truly know this craft," she murmured, almost in disbelief. Daniel chuckled softly. "Humans aren't the strongest or the fastest or the toughest, but we're good at care. We're good at healing each other." His words echoed in her heart. Lyra looked at him for a long moment. His skin was pale compared to her scales. His body was small, fragile, and yet there was something unshakable in him, a strength that had nothing to do with claws or weapons. "Daniel," she whispered, voice low. "Why do you help me? Truly, you gain nothing." He met her gaze, steady and calm. I don't need to gain anything. I just don't want you to suffer. Her chest tightened again. She turned her head quickly, hiding the moisture in her eyes. Her people would never understand this. She barely understood it herself. But in that moment, with pain easing under his care, she allowed herself to feel what she had never allowed before. Gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. The words tasted strange, foreign, but true. Daniel smiled faintly. Anytime. The hum of the ship filled the silence between them. Outside the cabin, life went on. Crew walking, engines burning, stars passing. But inside, the air was different. Softer. Warmer. Lyra closed her eyes, exhaustion weighing heavy. But for once, she did not feel alone. For once, she did not feel weak. The next morning, the ship's lights glowed faint gold, marking the beginning of another cycle. The corridors buzzed with movement, voices of different species mixing in the air, footsteps echoing across metal floors. But inside Commander Lyra's cabin, time felt slower. She lay half awake, her body heavy, her mind restless. The burning pain was still there, though less sharp than yesterday. Her pride still ached even more than her body. A warrior of her rank lying helpless on a bunk tended by a human, the thought made her scales prickle with shame. Yet when the door slid open and Daniel stepped inside carrying fresh supplies, something inside her eased, though she refused to admit it aloud. "Good morning," Daniel said softly. His voice carried warmth, not the false cheer of politeness, but something honest. He placed the med kit on the table, arranging the tools in order. Lyra shifted slightly, wincing. "You return again," she murmured. "Of course," he replied, kneeling by her side. "I told you, we'll get you through this, one day at a time." His calm certainty made her chest tighten. She wanted to tell him to leave, to reclaim the dignity she had lost. But when she looked at his face, she found no mockery there, only care. Daniel washed his hands, slipping on gloves. "I'll check the swelling. You'll feel some discomfort, but I'll be gentle." Lyra hesitated. Her people never showed weakness in front of others, never allowed anyone to touch them in such vulnerable ways. But she remembered the relief she felt after yesterday, the cooling ointment, the soothing cloth. It had been the first time she could rest without constant fire inside her. Slowly, she nodded. "Do it." Daniel worked carefully, his hands steady. He cleaned the area with warm water, his movements respectful. Each touch sent sparks of pain, but his voice anchored her. "Breathe with me again. In, out, she followed, her sharp breath slowly calming. He applied a fresh layer of ointment, his fingers spreading it gently. The burning dulled again, replaced by a cooling relief that made her exhale in a shaky sigh. "You're healing," Daniel said quietly. "The swelling is less than yesterday." Lyra blinked at him, surprised. "You notice such things?" He smiled faintly. "Humans pay attention to details, especially when it matters." She studied him for a long moment, his fragile-looking body, his soft skin, his careful hands. Nothing about him screamed strength in the way her people defined it. Yet there was strength here. "A different kind, your hands," she whispered almost to herself. "They do not tremble." "They can't," Daniel said simply. "When someone's in pain, they need steady hands." "Not fear," his words struck her. Among the Dracari, only battle brought honor. Healing was left to machines or low-caste workers. Yet this human carried healing like a weapon, steady and precise. As he finished, he sat back, removing his gloves. "That should keep the pain down. You'll recover faster if you stay off your legs for now." Her pride bristled. "A warrior does not rest." Daniel looked at her, his gaze unwavering. "A warrior who refuses to heal dies sooner. Rest is part of the fight." The truth in his words silenced her. She turned her eyes away, staring at the ceiling. "Why do you say such things?" "Do humans truly believe this?" He nodded. "Yes, back on Earth we learned that caring for the weak keeps the whole tribe strong. No one survives alone, no one survives alone," she repeated softly. The phrase tasted foreign, yet it lingered. Silence filled the cabin. Daniel packed the med kit, then poured her a cup of water, handing it to her. She took it carefully, her clawed fingers brushing his hand for a brief second. Warmth spread through her chest, confusing and unfamiliar. "You should eat something," Daniel said. "I can bring food later." Her eyes narrowed. "You treat me as if I am fragile." He shook his head. "Not fragile, just wounded. There's a difference." His words made her pause. For so long she had thought of herself as broken now, unworthy of command, but in his voice there was no contempt, only reassurance. "Daniel," she said slowly, her voice softer than usual, "among my people no one would stay by my side like this. They would leave me to rot in silence, yet you sit here speaking gently, working with patience. Why?" He met her gaze without hesitation. "Because I see you. Not just the commander, not just the warrior. You're a person in pain, and I can help." "That's enough," her throat tightened. She did not know how to answer. Finally, she turned her head, blinking back moisture in her eyes. Her voice cracked when she whispered, "I do not deserve this kindness." Daniel reached for the cloth again, wringing it out, his voice steady. "It's not about deserving. It's about needing. And right now you need care. That's all." The words sank deep into her heart, breaking through walls she had built for years. For the first time in her life, Commander Lyra allowed herself to lie back fully, her body relaxing under another's hands. She did not fight it, did not hide her pain. She let herself be treated not as a commander, not as a warrior, but as someone who was simply human in her suffering. And as Daniel worked in silence, his steady hands easing her pain, she felt something she had never known in all her years of war and duty, something she could not yet name, but that filled the hollow inside her chest. When he finally finished and stood to leave, Lyra's voice stopped him at the door. "Daniel," she said quietly. He turned. "Yes?" Her eyes softened, her voice unsteady. "Thank you for not seeing me as weak, but as worth helping." A small smile curved his lips. "Always." He left the cabin, the door sliding shut behind him, and Lyra lay in silence, staring at the ceiling, her heart beating strangely fast. For the first time, she wondered if true strength was not only in claws and blood, but in hands that healed. Night fell across the starship Veora, washing the corridors in a soft, dim glow. Outside the windows, stars drifted silently, distant and cold. Inside Commander Lyra's cabin, darkness wrapped around her like a heavy blanket. She sat on the edge of her bunk, legs trembling as she tried to lift herself. The fire between them had lessened, but the aching shame had grown stronger. Pain was one thing. Pride was another. And her pride had never felt so raw, so exposed. She had allowed Daniel, the human, to touch her, to care for her. She had allowed him to see her weakness, her helplessness. She had allowed herself to feel comfort in his presence, and that was what scared her most. Her scales shimmered faintly under the cabin light, a small reminder of the warrior she once believed herself to be, but the reflection looked back at her like a stranger. She was lying down, trembling, her dignity stripped bare, her hands clenched into fists. Her chest ached, not just from the lingering inflammation, but from the weight of shame that pressed on her. Why did she feel this way? She replayed Daniel's gentle hands, his calm voice, the way he had knelt beside her without hesitation. Her people would have mocked her. They would have turned away, but he had treated her like a being worthy of care, not a commander who had failed. That thought twisted her stomach. She wanted to be strong again, to rise without assistance, to walk without leaning on another. Yet the warmth of his touch lingered in her memory. A knock at the door startled her. "Commander? Are you awake?" It was Daniel's voice, soft as always. "I am awake," she replied curtly. He entered anyway, carrying a small tray of food. "You need nourishment," he said gently. "You can't heal on an empty stomach." She scowled but did not stop him. His persistence, so unlike any of her own kind, was irritating and yet comforting. "Sit," he said, placing the tray beside her. "Here, I've brought protein packs and fluids." Lyra looked at the food. She had never thought much about meals as a necessity beyond survival. Her people ate to live, never pausing to care about taste or warmth. But the human meal, simple and carefully prepared, felt intimate. "I don't need this," she muttered. Daniel smiled faintly. "You need it more than you think," she wanted to argue. She wanted to rise, to throw herself into the corridors, to reclaim the image of the unbreakable commander, but she could not. Her body still ached. Her pride still weighed heavily on her chest. Slowly, reluctantly, she picked up a pack and unwrapped it. Daniel watched quietly, his presence steady, not intrusive. She ate a few bites, then paused, chewing thoughtfully. "You see," Daniel said softly. "Even warriors need care." Lyra's throat tightened. The words were simple, but they cut deep. Care. She had spent her life believing that to accept it was weakness. Yet here she was, alive, because someone had refused to let her suffer alone. Her mind drifted to her battles, to all the times she had pushed herself past pain, past injury, past reason. And now, here, in the quiet of her cabin, she realized something terrifying. Strength was not always about endurance. Sometimes it was about courage, the courage to be seen, to be vulnerable, to let someone else carry part of your burden. Her chest ached again, not from the inflammation, but from understanding. Daniel cleared the tray and knelt beside her once more. "I want you to rest tonight. Let me check the swelling again, then you should sleep." "No," she whispered. "I must rise. I must train. I must—" "Stop," he interrupted, firm now. "Stop pretending. Your body says no. Your pride says yes. But the truth is, tonight you heal. And I will not leave you." She stared at him. The fire in his eyes was not anger, not judgment, but determination. It was a quiet strength that demanded trust whether she liked it or not. She swallowed hard. I cannot ask you to do this. I am nothing to you." Daniel shook his head. "You are more to me than you know. You are my crewmate. You are someone I care for. That is enough." The weight of his words pressed on her heart. She wanted to pull away, to flee into the halls and hide in the shadows of her own pride, but she did not. Instead, she let herself lie back, her body still trembling, and allowed him to check her swelling. His hands were steady. Each touch was careful, precise, patient. Every time she winced, he adjusted, never rushing, never forcing. His eyes met hers occasionally, and in that gaze she felt a strange calm wash over her. "Better," he said quietly after a long moment. "It is easing. The inflammation is going down. You will walk soon." "I hope so," she whispered, her voice thick. "I do not want to remain like this." Daniel nodded. "And you won't. We'll get through this together." One step at a time, the phrase echoed in her mind. Together. One step at a time. Her people had never spoken this way. They believed in solitude, in strength through isolation. But here, in this small cabin, she saw something different. Strength could be shared. Pain could be eased by another's hands. Healing could be a bond, not a burden. Tears pricked her eyes. She blinked them away, refusing to let them fall. But the truth remained. Daniel stood and offered his hand. "Try to rest now. I'll be outside if you need me." She hesitated, then nodded. She could not find the words to thank him, to explain the swirl of emotions inside her, so she simply lay back, closing her eyes. And for the first time in her life, Commander Lyra allowed herself to feel the strange, unfamiliar comfort of letting someone else care. In the quiet, with the stars watching silently from outside, she realized something profound. Sometimes, the greatest battles are not fought with claws or fire. Sometimes the greatest battles are fought within the heart, against pride, fear, and the terror of vulnerability. And tonight, in the cabin of the small, fragile human who refused to leave her side, she fought that battle, and for the first time, she was not alone. Morning light filtered softly through the cabin window, painting Commander Lyra's scales in a gentle golden glow. The ship hummed quietly, engines working in their usual rhythm. Yet the cabin felt like a world apart. Here, the pain and the shame of the past days lingered, but so did something new. Hope. She shifted slightly on the bunk, testing her legs. The inflammation between them had dulled since Daniel began his careful treatments, yet even a small movement caused sharp stabs of discomfort. Her pride, ever stubborn, told her to rise, to walk without leaning on anyone. But her body whispered caution. Daniel noticed her movement from across the room. He set down a tray of water and nourishment and approached slowly, careful not to startle her. "Good morning," he said softly, his voice calm and steady. "How are you feeling today?" Lyra's eyes met his, her gaze sharp and measured. "Better," she admitted, though not yet whole. He knelt beside her, careful to respect her space. "That's progress," he said. "Every small step counts. Today we try to stand together. I'll support you." Her chest tightened. Support. She had never leaned on another for strength in her life. Warriors did not allow such things. Yet as she looked at his patient face, something inside her softened. "Very well," she said quietly, her voice almost vulnerable. Daniel moved closer, guiding her hands to his shoulders. She gripped him tightly, drawing herself upright. Her legs shook violently under her weight, pain flashing like lightning. She clenched her teeth, refusing to cry out. I cannot, she whispered, her pride cracking. You can, Daniel said firmly, his hand steady on her arms. Just trust me, lean on me. I'll carry part of the burden. With his support, she rose slowly. Every small step was agony. Every movement a battle between pain and pride. Sweat beaded her forehead and her claws dug into his shoulders. And yet, step by step, she moved. The cabin felt smaller, the world outside distant, as if only the two of them existed. Daniel spoke softly, counting each step with her, his words steadying her like an anchor. 1, 2, 3, steady, hold, breathe. By the end of 10 careful steps, she was leaning heavily against the wall, panting, her body trembling. The burning between her legs had dulled slightly, but the ache remained. You did it, Daniel said quietly, not triumphantly, but with genuine encouragement. 10 steps. That's incredible. Lyra looked away, ashamed that she needed help to achieve such a simple task. But she also felt something unfamiliar. A spark of pride, not in her strength alone, but in the courage it took to accept help. You make it sound easier than it is, she said, voice low. That's because it's not about ease, he replied. It's about effort, courage, and persistence. You're stronger than you realize. For the first time, she allowed herself a small smile, not a warrior's proud grin, but a quiet, human smile of relief. Over the next several hours, Daniel guided her through careful exercises, sitting and standing, short steps across the cabin, gentle stretches to ease the tension. Each movement sent pain through her, yet each was accompanied by his unwavering support. He spoke little, letting his presence and patience carry her through. By midday, she was able to walk to the table unassisted, though she leaned slightly on the wall. The sight surprised even her. She had not imagined that simple steps a child could take easily, could feel like victories so profound. Look at you, Daniel said softly, walking. You're making real progress. Her throat tightened. She wanted to deny it, to insist it was nothing. But the truth weighed heavier than her pride. She had come far. She had endured more than she thought possible. And she had not done it alone. Thank you, she whispered almost inaudibly, for staying, for helping. Daniel shook his head gently. I didn't do this for thanks. I did it because you mattered. You still matter. That's what humans do. We help each other. We carry each other when needed. The words echoed in her mind. Her people, the Drakiri, had never understood such care. They valued strength, independence, and the ability to endure without assistance. Yet Daniel's actions taught her a different kind of strength, one born from patience, compassion, and the courage to let others help. As the day wore on, Lyra practiced walking longer distances, leaning less on Daniel each time. Pain flared occasionally, reminding her body of its limits, yet she refused to stop. With each step, she felt her confidence returning piece by piece, though tempered by the memory of her vulnerability. By evening, she managed to walk across the cabin entirely on her own. The accomplishment was small in the grand scheme of battles she had fought, yet monumental for her. She turned to Daniel, her eyes bright with unshed tears. I walked, she said quietly. He smiled warmly. Yes, you did. And tomorrow we'll go further. Her chest swelled with conflicting emotions, pride, relief, gratitude, and an unfamiliar warmth she could not yet name. She realized that healing was not just physical. It was emotional. Each step forward restored not only her body but a piece of her spirit that had been buried under shame. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to rest without fear. She leaned back against the wall, closing her eyes, and let the quiet of the ship fill her senses. Daniel remained nearby, attentive but not intrusive, his presence a silent promise of support. In that moment, Lyra understood something profound. Strength was not the absence of weakness. It was the courage to face it, the bravery to endure, and the wisdom to accept help when needed. As she drifted into a light sleep, her heart carried a new realization. Even a warrior as proud as Commander Lyra could grow stronger by allowing another to share her burden. And in the quiet of the cabin, with the stars shining silently beyond the windows, she whispered a promise to herself, one she had never spoken before. I will rise again, and I will walk, not alone, but stronger than ever. The Veora shivered as a sudden alarm pierced the calm of the ship. Red lights flashed along the corridors and warning sirens echoed in a relentless rhythm. A hull breach had occurred in one of the storage bays, a dangerous rupture that could spread if not contained immediately. The crew sprang into action, and panic threatened to take hold in even the most disciplined minds. Lyra's eyes snapped open. Her body, though improved, was still fragile from the past days of inflammation. Every step still sent jolts of pain through her legs. But her pride surged. She was a commander. She had to act. She could not let anyone see her as weak. She swung her legs over the bunk only to collapse back onto the sheets. Pain exploded between her legs, sharp and unrelenting. Her breath caught, and her hands trembled as she tried to rise again. Daniel, already at her side, caught her instinctively. "Lyra, stop," he said firmly, supporting her weight. "I must fight," she hissed, anger and desperation mixing in her voice. "I am a commander. I cannot stay here." "You cannot," Daniel said, his voice steady as iron. "Not yet. If you move like this, you'll fall and hurt yourself worse. You'll be unable to help anyone at all." Her chest heaved. She hated needing help. Every muscle in her body screamed to stand alone, to prove her strength, to fight. But the truth pressed down harder than pride. She was not ready. Not yet. Daniel adjusted his hold on her arms, his eyes meeting hers with unwavering determination. "You've made incredible progress, but this is one battle you cannot win alone. Let me carry part of this fight for you." The words cut through her anger. His hands were steady, sure, trustworthy. She knew deep down that he was right. Yet letting another bear the weight of her duty was harder than any enemy she had faced. "Do it," she said finally, her voice low but firm. It was not surrender, it was strategy, trust, a different kind of strength. Together they moved through the corridors. Lyra leaned on him step by step, her breathing shallow, her body screaming with each motion. Daniel's grip never wavered. His presence anchored her, guiding her through the chaos. As they reached the storage bay, the rupture hissed and escaping gases filled the air with a biting chill. Other crew members worked quickly to seal the breach, but the path was unstable, littered with debris. Lyra wanted to step forward, to take charge, to push through the pain and assert her authority. But Daniel held her back gently. "Not yet. Watch, learn, and plan. You'll move when it's safe." She bristled at the restraint. It felt like a cage. But the fire in her legs reminded her why she hesitated. She could trust him. And in trusting him, she was not weak. She was alive, ready to fight when the moment came. The breach was sealed just in time. Crew members cheered softly, relief washing over the bay. Lyra's knees buckled, and Daniel caught her instinctively. She leaned against him, trembling. Pride burned, but pain burned more. "You're safe," Daniel whispered. "See, you made it through without falling. You did what mattered most, survived to fight another day." Her pride rebelled at his words. Surviving without striking the enemy? Surviving while leaning on another? And yet slowly a new understanding settled in her chest. Strength was not always measured in brute force. Sometimes it was measured in wisdom. The courage to know one's limits and trust another to hold you up. She began, voice breaking. "I thought I had to do everything alone. That asking for help was shameful." Daniel shook his head. "No, not shameful. Smart, courageous. And sometimes it's the only way to truly succeed." Her gaze fell to the floor, her chest heaving. Tears pricked at her eyes, though she refused to let them fall. The walls she had built for pride and isolation cracked, just enough for understanding to seep through. "You carried me through when I could not walk," she said softly, almost a whisper. "And today you carried me through a battle. You make the impossible seem possible." Daniel smiled faintly. "It's not impossible. Humans just see differently. We know that sometimes strength isn't about standing alone. Sometimes it's about standing together." Her mind lingered on the idea, standing together. She had always fought alone. She had always relied on her own claws, her own fire, her own determination. And yet leaning on Daniel, she realized she could rise stronger, faster and smarter than she ever had alone. "You've changed me," she whispered, voice tight with emotion. "Not just my body, but my mind, my heart." He looked at her calmly. "That's what humans do. We heal more than bodies. We heal courage, pride, trust, and sometimes hearts." The sirens quieted, the bay cleared, and normalcy returned to the ship. Lyra could walk without leaning on him now, though her legs still ached. The pain was a reminder, not of weakness but of endurance, of progress, of the steps she had taken to rise again. She took a deep breath, looking at Daniel, her companion through pain and fear. "You treated me when I could not walk," she said softly. "And when danger came, you stood by me. You held me up when I thought I could not stand. How can I ever repay you?" He shrugged, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "No repayment needed. Just keep walking. Keep fighting. Keep being the person I know you are." Her chest tightened. That human simplicity, his words, his actions, his presence, taught her a lesson more powerful than any battle. Bravery was not only facing enemies, but also facing oneself, letting go of pride and trusting others. As she stood tall, finally steady on her legs, Lyra realized something new. The warrior within her had not weakened. It had transformed. Strength had shifted from the body to the heart, from claws to courage, from pride to trust. And in that transformation, she found something she had never expected. Not just healing, not just survival, but a bond deeper than any victory she had ever claimed on the battlefield. The stars outside the ship gleamed as if acknowledging the quiet triumph within. Lyra's heart felt lighter, her spirit steadier. She had faced herself and found new strength, not the strength of isolation, but the strength of connection, and she knew deep inside that no matter what the galaxy threw at her next, she would not face it alone. The corridors of the Veora were quiet, bathed in the soft glow of the ship's lights. Outside, stars drifted endlessly, cold and distant, yet within the cabin and hallways something warmer lingered. Commander Lyra, once broken by pain and shame, now stood fully on her own legs. Her steps were careful at first, each one deliberate, yet the fire that had once burned with agony was gone. In its place was a new, steady strength, a strength born not from claws or battle, but from endurance, trust, and understanding. Daniel followed at a respectful distance, his eyes calm and watchful. He had guided her, supported her, healed her, not just her body but her spirit. Yet now she walked alone, and for the first time she felt the full weight of accomplishment. Every step she took reminded her of the days spent trembling on the bunk, of the fire and swelling that had made her doubt herself, of the fear that she had felt in asking for help. She had walked through pain and shame and emerged stronger, not because she ignored weakness, but because she faced it and let another share her burden. The ship's crew moved quietly, noticing her strides. A few cast curious glances, but none interfered. Her presence was commanding yet different. There was no anger in her eyes today, no prideful arrogance. There was calm, focus, and something more, a quiet confidence that spoke of battles fought within and victories won. She paused near the observation deck and looked out at the stars. She remembered the first days of pain, the helplessness, the embarrassment, and she remembered Daniel's hands, steady and patient, guiding her through the worst of it. She realized then that true strength was not in standing alone. True strength was in knowing when to stand together. Daniel approached, quiet as ever. "You're steady now," he said softly. "I'm proud of you." Her eyes met his. Pride surged in her chest, but it was different now. A pride rooted not in stubbornness or bravado, but in accomplishment, in growth. She smiled faintly. "Thank you," she said. "For everything." He shook his head. "I didn't do it for thanks. I did it because you mattered. You still matter, and you're stronger than you know." She felt the warmth of his words settle deep in her heart. She had learned more than healing. She had learned courage, humility, and trust. She had learned that allowing someone else to carry a part of your burden did not diminish your strength. It multiplied it. The ship shuddered slightly as it passed through a light meteor field. Other crew members adjusted their paths, but Lyra walked steadily, unaffected. She had walked through pain and fear, through helplessness and dependence, and now nothing could shake her confidence. Later, she joined the crew in the training room. Movements that had once brought searing pain now felt natural. She could run short distances, lift weights carefully, and train her reflexes, all without leaning, all without hesitation. Her body was still healing, but her mind and spirit were whole. Daniel watched from the doorway, a faint smile on his lips. He knew this was more than physical recovery. Lyra had embraced the lesson humans had taught her, that strength and vulnerability could coexist. That weakness, when faced with courage and trust, could become a path to power. As the cycle of the ship continued, Lyra walked to the bridge. The crew paused, observing silently. The commander who had once been on the brink of collapse now walked confidently, every movement purposeful. Her eyes scanned the displays, taking in the readings, the navigation charts, the life signs of every crew member. She was a leader again, not just in title, but in presence and spirit. She turned to Daniel, who had stepped quietly behind her. "Come," she said softly. "Walk with me." He nodded and joined her, matching her stride. Together they walked the length of the bridge. Her steps were steady, and yet she felt the bond between them in every movement.